Welcome to Buckets, brought to you by FanDuel Sportsbook. My name is Matt Moore. I'm the senior NBA writer for the Action Network, and this is your slightly belated weekend recap. We got some news for you to break down in the NBA. We're going to get to a lot of stuff today. We're going to talk about the Lebron injury on today's show and the impacts of that in the betting markets. We're going to talk about the MVP race and is that done? And then we're going to talk about what we would bet on as far as the awards go, if we had to bet today as we enter in the final stretch run of the season. We will do that all on today's show and let you know all that we talk about today can be found in the award-winning Action Network app. Best way for you to track your picks. Give us a second. Updates on where the bets and money are coming in on. All sorts of great stuff. Check it out in the Action Network app. If you haven't done so yet and you're listening to this podcast, what are you doing? Come on. You got to download the app. You got to get the app. It's amazing. As well as you get Green Dot Daily, our daily live show in there as well. Join me today, Albert Wynn. He's the Analytics Capper. You can find him on Twitter at Analytics Capper. He is in Southern California, joining us on this from a remote location. Albert, how you doing?
I'm doing good, man. I'm in SoCal to mourn LeBron James's injury. We'll get into that in a little bit, but no, I'm excited. The NBA is regular season is dwindling down. We're going to focus on some of the teams that we think can make the playoffs or make a potential run, and then obviously the awards as well. But I'm doing well, man. How are you, Matt?
I'm good. I'm hanging in. Lots of stuff to get to. I'm working on playoff picture, set of magic numbers, all sorts of stuff. And we'll talk about all that on today's show. Let's go ahead and get started. First segment today, we're going to talk about this LeBron James injury. So the Lakers make all these trades at the deadline, and they finally kind of change things up, and they're on track, and they get all of these new additions, and Malik Beasley, and D'Angelo Russell, and Jared Vanderbilt, and they, even without D'Lo, who's out too, and we'll talk about that in a minute, they staged a 27-point comeback versus the Mavericks on Sunday. Phenomenal performance. What a comeback. On the road, mind you. That's a huge swing game. They got all the momentum in the world. The ESPN's talking about how much would they beat the Nuggets by? Like, would it be 4 games or 5 games for a team that's in 12th place in the Western Conference? All of this, all the momentum in the world. But LeBron in that game suffered a foot injury, came down, told a teammate and told the trainer, I heard a pop. Now, that's better than like, I felt a pop, which if you feel a pop, that's always terrible, but it's never good to hear a pop. The language that has come out on this is pretty significant. So initially Shams reports multiple weeks. That's all I said. It's like multiple weeks. And then another tweet, he says multiple options. That's a concerning bit of information. Chris Haynes followed up today. Chris Haynes is very plugged into the Clutch camp. Chris Haynes followed up today and said that, it's going to be several weeks, and then they're going to reevaluate him and weigh several options. So again, I'll just go ahead and say this. My read on the situation from all of that language is the initial reports are you probably need surgery, whether it's to repair a ligament or there's a fracture or whatever. And they're trying to wait to see how he heals and see if they can avoid surgery. But like, this also may be tied to team performance. If they survive without him,
there you go. Yeah.
Then maybe they assess a different approach to this rather than you go 2-3 weeks. If they go, I kind of game planned out a 3-week absence. They got 11 games in that span. If they go 3-8, if they go 2-9, season's over. You're done. You're too far back to can't catch up. Okay. LeBron's going to go ahead and have surgery and set himself up. If they can hang, maybe LeBron tries to play through it, tries to get back on the floor, like doesn't go to that kind of option. That's my read on it. That's speculative, not based on reporting. But at this point, like, especially as bettors, we're going to have to speculate a little bit to try and get a sense for, we don't even know what the injury is. Like, we don't know if it's a fracture. We don't know if it's a tear. We don't know what it is. So we're going to, especially with the odds that are on the market, we're going to have to look at this. Currently at FanDuel, the Lakers are plus 225 to make the playoffs, minus 290 to miss. That briefly popped up over 300 on Monday. It's gotten back down to minus 290. Do you agree kind of with my assessment as far as like what we're looking at here, reading tea leaves when it comes to LeBron?
Yeah, especially the latter points that you were making, Matt. I think they're going to play it, I wouldn't say necessarily by ear, but they're going to see how they do well. There's 21 games left in the regular season. I think either way, if they do, let's say they go 500 and somehow sneak into like contention for a play-in tournament with a few games left, yes, I do think LeBron may rush and get back into it. But even then, right, at the end of the day, Matt, you're going to need a 100% healthy LeBron to even do anything in the playoffs. So if your goal is just to make the postseason and then risk another significant injury, I think that's the wrong move. The trade deadline moves that they made or trades that they acquired, the players that they acquired, is not only for this year, right? It's a potential to build next year and the year beyond as well. So in my opinion, it pains me to say this as an NBA fan because it would have been nice for them to get like an 8th or a 7th seed. I think the 7th seed would have been more interesting. But I just don't. I'm very, very bearish on this team. You need 100% LeBron and you need 100% healthy Anthony Davis, and those two right now are big risks. Again, 21 games left. They may go, 11 and 10 in their next 21, which would be a significant improvement to how they've performed without LeBron for the last several years. But I agree with you, man. I think it's a fade for the Lakers right now. It's a sell time.
Lakers currently 29 and 32. I have gotten a little annoyed at some of the conversation, which acts like this team is like suddenly awesome. People are confusing better than they were with good. Like that game on Sunday says a lot more about the Mavericks blowing a 27-point lead than it does about the Lakers. They are just 2 games back in the loss column of the 5th seed. That's how tight things are in the Western Conference. So they're just 2 games back in the loss column in the Western Conference. That's good. The problem is the number of teams that are in there, right? So when we're kind of capping this, you have to examine not only like, well, they're only 2 games back. Like they could catch, like they could definitely catch into a play-in spot. They can, but like, look who they have. They have to outclimb the Blazers. The Thunder are tied with them in the loss column. So they got to beat the Blazers and the Thunder outright. Then if they want to get into a 7 or 8 spot, they're going to have to get past 2 of Pelicans, Wolves, Jazz, Warriors, Mavericks, Clippers. Or that's 4 rather, right? Or just 2 of those. Yeah, just 2 of those. So you have to get past at least 2 of those teams, right? And while the trades made, like there was a great trade that they pulled off, I was making this joke, like adding actual NBA players to LeBron and Anthony Davis makes the team better. Who knew? But that doesn't mean that like they were great. They're not an elite team. The other thing here is D'Angelo Russell, who is out at least tonight and tomorrow, as we record this on Tuesday night. He is out. He is out for both the Grizzlies game and the back-to-back game versus the Thunder. That was like a key piece. Like they traded Russell Westbrook and replaced him with D'Angelo Russell, and now Russell's out. They're down to Dennis Schroeder. Like that's it. Like they're really short on shot creation now. This season, the Lakers are 5-9 straight up without LeBron. That's the record, is 5-9. Okay, not good. It's still bad when I took out the games where Anthony Davis played. So even when Anthony Davis plays, not good. The schedule in this little, let's say that LeBron's able to get back. Okay, he's superhuman, gets back in 3 weeks. I looked at what that schedule looks like. They've got Grizzlies and Thunder Tuesday night, Wednesday night, Wolves, Warriors, Grizzlies again, Raptors, Knicks. That Wolves, Warriors, Grizzlies, Raptors, Knicks stretch, that's all at home. That's 5 home games in a row. Then they're at New Orleans, at Houston, home for Dallas, home for Orlando. My thought process is, okay, all of these teams are about 500 or a little bit below. The teams that they're competing with really are below 500. So if they can get to 5-6 over the next 11 games, they can stay within range. What that looks like is they need to win the Oklahoma City game tomorrow. That Wednesday game is crucial. They have got to win that Thunder game. Beat them. Minnesota, who's been terrible lately. Okay, you're at home. You're on at least 1 day, 2 days rest coming off of the Wednesday game. It's 3rd and 4, sure, but still. Then beat the Pelicans on March 14th, Houston on March 15th in a back-to-back, and the Orlando game. Oklahoma City, Minnesota, New Orleans, Houston, Orlando. That gains you ground on 3 of those teams, and it's 2 tank squads. Orlando's not tanking, but they're bad. So like those are winnable. That to me is like the pathway for them to go 5-6 and at least be within range if LeBron James can get back. What I'm trying to say, my problem here is like plus 225 to make the playoffs is not like, this is serious Lakers juice. Like this is a serious Lakers tax for how public they are. Like,
yep.
If there is any other city on the name of this jersey, if the jersey's got any other name on it outside of maybe Boston, like there's no way that this number is plus 225. It's plus 300, plus 400, somewhere in that range. It doesn't make any sense. I don't think that if you're going to bet the Lakers, if you want to bet low on them and say like, I think LeBron comes back, he's superhuman, I think they can get through this stretch, Anthony Davis can play like an MVP, they can get through this. The number is not plus 225 to make the playoffs. Do you agree?
I fully agree with you, but I would say this, the one saving grace for them, and let's just say they end up playing well, and let's say in the next 11 games, you have them slated to win 5 of those, so 5 and 6, say just right below 500. If they beat the right teams in that stretch, right? Because there's a lot of teams that are just right above them, right? The Timberwolves, the Warriors, the Mavericks, Pelicans, they play all those teams. If those are the games that they end up winning, then it could kind of change the landscape of how the West may shape out. But you're right. Like it's a huge Lakers tax. And I think a lot of that is also excitement from the trade deadline. A lot of money went in right at the deadline or right when LeBron came back from injury. But none of these are for sure wins without LeBron James. They had LeBron James get the record over Kareem Abdul-Jabbar, and they lost that game against OKC at home in LA. So, I mean, again, even if these teams are tanking, I would say only the Rockets game is a for sure win. And even then, like I don't think they would cover, right? So from a betting standpoint, this is a team I'm going to stay far away from.
My take on the Lakers is, I don't think you have to bet them now. I think if you want to bet them, you wait. See if wait till LeBron gets back, right? Because my angle is I don't want to bet them to make the playoffs. There's just not a good enough return on that. Like there's too much that can go wrong. This number is short. The good number here is for them to win the Western Conference. Like that's the good number, is for them to just they get in and LeBron and AD, and it is a miraculous story. And what a wonderful tale of the underdog triumph for a team that literally has an extremely high payroll with 2 Hall of Famers on it. Sure. But that's like the play, but you can't do it unless you cannot bet the Lakers to win the Western Conference if you don't know LeBron James is going to be back. So wait until he's back. You will not get the plus 3,400 that they are right now, but you'll get a good number. Like you will still get a double digit number for them to win the Western Conference. If you want to bet the Lakers, that's the number I want you that you should bet. You should wait and bet that number. I'm just saying,
But Matt, to even double click on that point, Matt, because I fully agree with you. I would only bet that if they're the 7th seed. This is not a 2007 Warriors Mavericks situation, right? The Lakers, guys, it's not even going out on the limb. The Lakers, if they face Denver in the first round, will not beat the Denver Nuggets. I'm sorry, everybody. I'm sorry, everyone living in fantasy land. The Denver Nuggets are the number 1 team in the West for a reason. Jokic is going to be a back-to-back MVP for a reason. They have a deep team. They have a superior coach, a superior system, and they have the best home court advantage in the NBA. So if the Lakers get into the play-in game and get that 8th seed, do not bet them to win the West. If they somehow get to that 7th seed, if they play, I don't know, the Kings or the Grizzlies, that is a higher chance. But even then, it's a long shot.
So I reacted on Twitter today to the ESPN segment from yesterday's show. It was before the LeBron injury, so I want to make clear they weren't saying this after LeBron. But it was Tristan Thompson being raise your hand if you think that the Lakers would beat the Nuggets. And he raised his hand, and Mark Spears, congratulations to the Hall of Famer Mark Spears, raises his hand. And Vince Carter was very sheepishly I guess. And Rona Shelburne was yeah. And it was mad. It was just, for me, it was crazy that they were all just so confident. And I was like, if you ask me, can the Lakers beat the Nuggets? Sure. Nuggets have defensive problems. Okay. LeBron's playoff tested. weird things happen. I could see it. I could definitely see it happening. But like being like, no, for sure. So I'll actually disagree with you where I would be nervous if I was a Nugget. And then I'll tell you, like being here in Denver, Nuggets fans would be terrified if it's LeBron and AD. I think they're way better in every single category. I think that LeBron is not the player that he, was 2 years ago when they won that, or 3 years ago when they won the title. I don't think AD is the same player he was 3 years ago when he won the title. I don't think Jokic is. I think Jokic is way better than he was. This roster's way better. Like all of these things matter. I don't mind you if you want to wait. If you're just like, I believe in LeBron, I want to bet the Lakers. For those people, I am just telling you, wait till LeBron is in. And then if you're going to bet the Lakers, don't go small, go big, right? Don't go like, I think they can make the play-in. Go bigger, because the variance here is extremely wild on how they're going to be able to make it into this play-in tournament. And then from there, if they could just get in, your value shortens considerably. Maybe take a cash out or whatever, but I would be looking to bet them to go further rather than taking a small stance on, I think this team is pretty good. They are pretty good, but you can't get an appropriate price because they're the Lakers. And that to me is, I think, the lesson here. Let's move on. Let's talk about the MVP real quick. We'll do, if you had to bet the award here in a second, I'll ask a question. Is MVP done? Nikola Jokic with a 40-point triple-double and an overtime win over the Clippers on Sunday night, capping off a fantastic weekend of basketball. Is absolutely incredible. It seems like forever ago that Joel Embiid won a regular season home game versus Nikola Jokic, and everyone said, like, we've got to make this into a thing, and the straw poll's been out, and there's all these types of things. The feeling across everything is that Joker's pretty much locked this up. I do think that Sunday was a nail in the coffin, if not the nail in the coffin. Currently, Jokic is minus 310, Embiid's plus 600, Giannis is plus 1,000. I think the market is right in that Nikola is a considerable favorite. We'll get to whether I think that number is completely accurate or not here in a second. But what I want to ask you, Albert, is this question. If I came from the future and I told you Joel Embiid wins MVP, and you got to fill in the blanks for how that happens, what has to happen for Joel Embiid to win the MVP?
First and foremost, he has to play all the games. That's the rest of the games in the regular season. So that's number one. Number two, the 76ers would have to finish first in the East. That means they would have to catapult the Celtics and the Bucks. They're 4 games back. It's not impossible, but it's a very hard task for them to beat those two teams. And then from a numbers perspective, I think perception versus reality. I think reality is going to show that Jokic, for the majority of the regular season, has had superior numbers. But the perception is going to be important here. If Embiid ends the season scoring, I don't know, 4 straight 45-point games, and they win those games in national TV fashion, and again, they finish in first place in the East, I think then you'll have an argument on having Embiid as a legitimate contender. You know where I am in terms of Jokic. I think he's the bona fide winner, and I think it's more than him outlasting people. I think people need to respect how good Jokic really is. Like, he's a very deserving MVP this year. But yeah, to answer your question, play the rest of the game, finish first in the East, and then have numbers that are better than Nikola.
Don't know there's any way you can have better numbers. You can have better scoring numbers. If he leads the league in scoring for the number one team in the league, does that get it done?
I would vote no, but I could see why if there are sentiments against giving Jokic back-to-back MVPs, then that could be a narrative that they would attach the vote to.
It's been interesting to watch it. I think part of the key here is what I'll say is, from talking to voters, I do think the bar is high here. Like, I think the bar is really high for Joker to win back-to-back MVPs. I think giving it 3, I think they do have a sense for, hey, Jordan never got 3, LeBron never got 3. Like, this is a big deal that they're doing this. The problem, and this has been the case the last 2 seasons, is Joker's just not giving them a fucking choice. Like, exactly. I don't think they want to, but like, he's averaging a triple-double, scoring 25 points a game on 80% true shooting for the number one team in the Western Conference. What do you want me to do? Like, what do you want me to do? That's where I think a lot of it gets to. It's just like, I don't know what to tell you. Like, I don't, necessarily want to vote for him because of the weight that it causes, but I think I got to, and that I really do think it's where it's at. Giannis is a really interesting case. Okay. Word came out while we were recording this episode. He's back tonight. Okay. He's probably going to play fewer games than Joker and Embiid. Probably going to play fewer games by like a little bit. The Bucks overtook the Celtics with their loss to the Knicks on Monday night. So like the Bucks have a shot here of finishing with the best record. Giannis is obviously a far superior defensive player. The advanced metrics don't love Giannis because he hasn't been as efficient this year. I have a little bit of I go back and forth. My eye test says that Giannis is the best player in the league. Like he is the most dominant player. And like I watch Nikola night after night after night. I know how amazing he is. Giannis is so dominant on both ends of the floor. And objective analysis says that Jokic is more impactful. His team wins by more when he's on the floor. His efficiency is way better. And that like people are like, what does efficiency really matter? Okay. Fucking literally, the game is decided by whether or not you put the ball in the basket. If you don't do it as often as the other guy on the same number of shots, if you adjust for that rate of shots taking, the other guy's more efficient and he has the assist edge. What does it like if I came back from the future and I said Giannis wins MVP, what does that look like to you?
Yeah, so people don't realize Giannis is actually not that far off, right? He's averaging more points than Jokic. He's averaging more rebounds than Jokic. I'm a little disappointed in terms of his blocks per game. He's averaging less than 1 block a game. For someone that, big physically and that athletic, you would expect a little more of their effort on the blocking shots. But as a whole, he's a better defender than Jokic. So the way for him to win is similar to Embiid. He has to play the rest of the games, which you've already caveated by saying he's not. There's going to be some load management moving forward. And they also have to finish first place, not only in the East, but I think in the entire NBA, which they have a shot at. I think, again, this is going to be another perception reality discussion. If Giannis finishes the last 2 weeks of the regular season, his team goes 8-0 and he has a ridiculous 38, 15 and 8, stretch there. I think people are going to remember that. But I think Giannis has a much harder hill to climb to be an MVP because he already has 2. So it'd be hard for these voters who are quote unquote fatigued on Jokic. I don't think they would be able to turn and give a guy his 3rd MVP. If anything, it would be Embiid because it's someone new. He's never won it before, and he does a lot for Philly. So to answer your question, everything that Embiid, but also he has to finish first overall on record.
Let's go ahead and transition to if we had to bet on these awards today. If we had to bet, if I was like, here's this money, you got to go bet it right now. Let's start with MVP. You think it's done? You think this is over?
I do. Yeah, this is going to be a very boring segment for the both of us because if I had to bet on any of these awards, it's going to be the front runner right now. So with MVP, according to FanDuel right now is at -310. I think that's still a great bet for someone who I think is pretty locked in to win that award.
I would take Embiid +600 if I had to bet it right now. So the reason is, look, I think a lot of this, there is a weird misconception about the straw poll. So the straw poll comes out and Joker gets 75% of the first place votes. And the idea is that because more people didn't vote for Joel Embiid, that the gap is like really wide in terms of how close those two are. That is a really boneheaded and mistake-prone way to look at it. When Tim Bontemps asks those of us that are included in this poll, and I'm one of them, it's just like the ballot. Okay. It does not there is no indication of how close is it. It is just, who are you voting for? It's a binary choice essentially between Jokic or Embiid, Jokic and Giannis, depending on who you have top 2. So Jokic and Embiid can be very close and Joker be at 75%, and that can flip very easily, right? And if it flips a little, it's likely to flip in the voter block considerably because I've done the research and studied this. The vote coalesces around one guy in the end. This is not straw poll. This is like the actual vote. The winner has gotten 85% or more of the total available points allocated by voting since I think 2000 is when I remember pulling it from. So like if you want to call it groupthink, fine, but it coalesces around one guy. And you say like, okay, well, it's coalesced around Jokic. Yes, but if that shifts, it's going to shift together. My point here is that it is more likely that Embiid wins in a landslide than Jokic wins in a narrow race. That's what I'm trying to indicate. It's like, it's very unlikely that we're going to get 40 first place votes, 20 for Giannis. That's not what the vote looks like. Whoever wins it is going to get 75 to 80%, maybe 90% of the first place votes. And that means that so from there, you need to figure out how close you think that the guys are in the voters' minds between them. I think Embiid is second, even though Giannis was second in the straw poll. I think Embiid, because of the time that Giannis has missed, I think Embiid is second. I think there is like a little bit of a push for like, come on, we got to give it to Embiid sometime. At 600, like that is a 15% chance of winning the award. Joel Embiid's chances of winning this award are not 15%. There is not a 15%, like 15 out of 100 that Joel does not win this award. If this season replays over 100 times, Joel probably, I think, wins it like 40% of the time. Maybe a little bit less than that, considering like the variance for Giannis, right? Because if Giannis just goes on another 40-point tear every night, that changes it. But even then, it's definitely not 15. So to me, the best value is plus 600 on Joel. That's my thought process. I'm not betting it.
I like it.
So I already have a Patrick Mahomes, Joel Embiid position from earlier in the season, along with a Mahomes Giannis. So I just really got to get bet heavy on Joker on some of these parlays and get home. So you talked about the favorite here. So I'm curious on this next one. I don't think that I'm not betting sixth man of the year. I'm done. I'm done betting sixth man of the year. I'm just trying to figure this out. Right now, we've talked about Powell. I bet Powell consistently. He's plus 690 right now. Brogdon keeps moving up the board. I will say that like I'm a little interested in Emmanuel quickly because he's getting a little bit of buzz. Like he's plus 4,200. It's like a little. The only reason I think that quickly, who's averaging 12 points a game, and that is not the category of like a sixth man of the year. But the only reason I think it's interesting, there's no good candidate. Like, I don't know what this vote's going to look like, Albert, because I don't know who they're voting for. The books think they're voting for Brogdon. I'm very curious what you think about sixth man of the year and if there's any value to be found in this thing.
Yeah, it's such a cluster of an award. Like even Russell Westbrook is, one of the leading candidates at plus 3,600. Bobby Portis, who I feel like he hasn't played in several weeks, is still up there at plus 3,600. Right now, the top three candidates, Brogdon, Powell, and Maxey. Out of those three, I think Maxey has potential to get CLV for you because the Sixers may continue to win. And then if Giannis sits or if Brown sits, the other two teams may fall back down to earth. But I think it's a Brogdon award. I think you mentioned this a few weeks ago. I love your vernacular on this. I think it's the safest bet. He's the sixth man on the best team, and you can't really pick any Denver Nugget on there just because the six-man role there has changed a couple of times now throughout the year, especially now with Highland gone. So by default, this is almost like a Brogdon award to lose. But I'm with you. Like this award hasn't made sense all season long. I'm not going to bet this at all. I remember I was really high on Malik Monk. He's not even on here anymore, so I'm not going to touch this award at all.
A little adjustment. I did say 690. I thought it was a typo. I thought that was high. It's Powell plus 390. Powell's leading in points per game for a team that's going to make the playoffs. So like this should be rather open and shut. That Norman Powell's going to win it, but everyone keeps telling me I'm wrong and Malcolm Brogdon's going to win. I gotta be honest with you, like Brogdon's been fine, but like I don't think Brogdon's been sensational. I think it's been like the Celtics are death by committee. It's like him and Derek White and Grant Williams. So I don't know. It's a weird one to kind of figure out. Most improved player took some money this week. Shai Gilgeous-Alexander has missed a few games with an injury, and all of a sudden at FanDuel, Lauri Markkanen's minus 280 again. This keeps Lauri keeps taking money and gets to this really short number. Time passes and it gradually equalizes to where it's like minus 125 or plus 125 Lauri, plus 150, plus 175 Shai. Shai's now plus 440. I don't have any reason to think that Shai's going to miss the rest of the season. Maybe the Thunder are being this is a stealth tank, but I don't have a lot of reason, I think, to suspect that. I continue to really wonder about, I think Markkanen's been fantastic. I think Markkanen's been a really great story. I have a hard time seeing the voters not recognizing Shai for the jump that he made and getting the Thunder to where this team with this roster is competitive in the Western Conference for a play-in spot.
Yeah, I mentioned this a couple of weeks ago. I think the tiebreaker is going to be team record. A couple of weeks ago, they were essentially tied. Now the Jazz are 31-31, sitting in 8th seed, while the Thunder have lost 3 straight. They're now they're below the Lakers now at 28-32. Again, that's only 2 games apart, but I think that's why not only is Shai missing games, but if OKC continues to lose games, I think it's just going to be a hard ask for voters to select a team with the worst record. So, I mean, I agree with you. I mean, when it comes to Shai, we mentioned this already, but points, rebounds, assists, plus the steals and blocks numbers, he's a 1 of 1 right now in the NBA. And unfortunately, he may not get any accolades because his team is not going to win enough or he's not going to play enough games. But this is a great opportunity if you had to bet this and you think OKC from a team perspective is not too far off from Utah Jazz. Again, only 2 games apart. 1 week can really change the landscape of the seeding there. So if OKC can get on a winning streak, 3 to 4 games, or win 4 of the next 5 games, and they jump Utah Jazz, then the odds here are going to change for sure.
We all like Jaren Jackson for Defensive Player of the Year. We've been telling you about it since he was plus 175. We were late to it, but we have been telling you on this podcast when they were still valued to be wrung out of it. He's going to win Defensive Player of the Year. I don't even think, honestly, at this point, I don't even know if injury would take him out. Knock on wood.
Are you surprised? Are you surprised that's not as juicy as some of the other awards? Brogdon, Jokic.
I think there's still kind of
I
think there's an idea of one, Memphis has faded a little bit. I think there's always an injury concern with Jackson versus Brogdon honestly should have one considering his injury history, but a little bit of a concern there. And then the problem is just there isn't a super strong candidate, and the next strongest candidate is not Brook Lopez at plus 350. It's Bam.
Mm-hmm.
But there's just not no one wants to talk about Miami. I'll continue to say I don't know. I think Bam might be the best defensive player in the league. Bam might get my vote if I had a vote. I might honestly vote for Bam just from the perspective of Jaren is so explosive with the blocks and the Grizzlies defense is better overall. But Bam is so essential to the versatility that they put out there. In today's game, I don't know that anybody's as valuable as Bam. That said, minus 190 isn't, I think that part of it though is they're not gonna take a lot of money on this either. I think that more money has come in on 6 man with the uncertainty and most improved. I think DPOY this has been a pretty stable market, and that to me I think is a reason why there isn't more juice on it. A favorites parlay, which you can do at FanDuel, Jokic minus 310, Paolo Banchero minus 1,000, Jaren Jackson Jr. minus 190, Lauri Markkanen minus 280, Malcolm Brogdon minus 210 is plus 344. So you get a lot of things go your way on that. But if you do want to go that, you can do that at FanDuel. They are one of the only books that allow you to parlay awards. Let's go wrap it up for Buckets for a weekly recap with Albert. We'll be back next week talking about it. On Friday, I'll have a guest and we're going to catch up on all things on the playoff picture. Make sure to stay tuned for that. You can catch our Best Bets episodes Monday through Friday. We're going to be adding a Friday Best Bets episode as well as a Monday one that we're going to start doing as well. Make sure to be on the lookout for that. We'll see you guys again next time. Till then, let's get buckets.